Welcome to another episode of AutoSave. I'm Camille Salazar-Hadaway, here with me, my co-host, Nick Andrade. Hello, Nick.
Hi, how are you? How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. On this episode of AutoSave, we're continuing our dive. I was going to say counting down till the end of this game.
The top 5 swords that Cloud holds.
No, we're not doing that. That would be boring because, again, a lot of those swords really big too. It's not practical. Anyways, I digress. We're going to continue our dive into our game, Final Fantasy VII Remake. Nick, I already asked you how you're doing, and I feel like you just have so much energy, especially because right now you have a blanket just over you that is like making sure your energy doesn't leave you while it is like 30 degrees outside.
Well, when I do this show, I feel like a real king. I feel like I'm on top of the world, so why not dress it? And right now I have it draped over me like I am the king of the North. And I feel like, I just want to pull out my sword, my giant Buster sword, which, by the way, I have to mention, we started a segment on this Final Fantasy journey of why Cloud's sword's so big, and then I don't think we've done it in the last 2 episodes. So I'm going to ask you right now, Camille, why is Cloud's sword too big? I'm putting you on the spot.
Oh, okay. It makes lots of noise when he runs. There's been multiple times in this game where I have my headset on when I'm playing, and I hear this clanking, and I'm like, what the heck is that? Is there an enemy nearby? No, it's the Buster sword. So let that settle in. But I do want to say, Probably we started it and stopped it just because it wasn't a good segment. Maybe we should just let it die.
No, I like the segment, okay? So I don't want it to die. I want to come back with it. And I don't agree with you because, again, I think big swords are incredible. If I was like an anime character, I would love to have a big sword.
No. Okay, I'm going to put another reason because we missed 2 episodes with this segment in it. So another reason, you would think with a big sword, it would offer lots of cover from enemy fire. Mm-hmm. But as we'll find out in this episode today, that is not the case. There were times when Cloud was running away from enemies, shooting at him, and he was getting a lot of hit points. So purpose? There is none. There's no reason why the Buster Sword has to be that big.
When we get into that point, I want you to be specific on these things. But I can kind of understand, especially with those damn helicopter goddamn soldiers.
Helitroopers. Damn them. Damn them. Now, last time when we left off, we saw Cloud and the gang as they tried to stop Shinra from completely destroying Sector 7. However, they failed. And it's not often that we usually see a hero fail at this scale, which was really interesting to see. And it seems like Jesse and Biggs were lost in the fight as well and presumably dead. I'm going to say they're dead. I'm saying they're dead.
Yep.
Aerith was kidnapped and we found out she was an ancient.
Hey, Tifa, know anything about ancients?
I know I've heard of them at least.
They come up in planetology books. Meant to be the original stewards of the planet. Could even commune with it, talk to it and stuff.
And that leads us into today's episode as we cover Chapter 14, In Search of Hope, and Chapter 15, The Day Midgar Stood Still. Now, our theme today is the unlikely savior. And that is basically, of course, where 1 or 2 or more characters help out in a situation where you don't think they would otherwise. Now, we've talked about the merc for hire and characters that usually start off bad and end up turning good, but this is a different story. These are characters that help or guide out of left field, and you're not really expecting them to show up or provide that help. Where there was no prior build-up to this character beforehand, and we see that, and we're going to talk more about that. And it's not necessarily like a redeemed villain, like the Grinch turning good. Again, we'll dig into that later.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, I feel like this. I think we're trying to like preface as much as possible that one, I don't want to spoil anything because again,
Yes.
if you look at like chapter 14, it's in a search of hope and the unlikely savior. So you're trying to think of like, okay, what the hell happens here at this point? But I always think about it like there's a lot of stories where the villain ends up turning good because they find out something maybe, or they grow as a character or whatever. And I wanted us to maybe make it clear that this is just kind of out of nowhere. This is the kind of like unlikely person that you really wouldn't expect help you that ends up really helping you.
Yeah, exactly. So do you have some examples of those characters?
Oof. I've been trying to dig because again, there's this fine line between characters who are, you know, let's say evil that, you know, build into some nice character like we mentioned, the Grinch or something like that, but that's not what we're looking for. So I'm trying to think like who the hell comes out of nowhere. And I thought of like Jaime Lannister from Game of Thrones, but he develops as a character. So that's kind of like, I'm not really sure. And then I thought of Severus Snape because that's kind of out of nowhere. You kind of think he's a bad character. And then as he dies, oops, sorry, spoiler alert. Sorry, it's 2007, okay? You need to figure it out if you haven't yet. Anyway, but he comes out of nowhere. So I thought that kind of related, but the most for me was Magneto in Days of Future Past.
Yeah.
Because he has an agenda where he is a bad character, but he knows that maybe he's got to help in this situation because these are dire straits. And I think that kind of connects more with what we're going for.
I was thinking Magneto as well. I feel like throughout his story, even in the animated series, that's kind of Magneto's role. He always has this agenda that's opposite of the X-Men, but then they always find a way to team in because they have a common goal, and then that betrayal at the end. I don't know if we're going to see betrayals from any of these characters that we're going to be talking about. But other characters, I would say Loki could be one as well. We never thought Loki, well, when I was watching the movies, the cinematic MCU, I never thought Loki would actually help. I just thought he'd just be there, but then he makes the ultimate sacrifice.
He does. I wanted to ask you about Loki too, because again, this is a guy who is evil, but good sometimes, but not. Like you can never really understand or like where he's coming from, because again, it's mostly him. I think he chooses to make decisions based on himself and what is good for him in that scenario. But we see some like acts of great good service, but then we also see some terrible acts from him. And I always am confused at what kind of character he is. Is he a villain? I don't think so. I think, again, he is maybe just the god of mischief, like he says he is.
Exactly. I think he's just, he likes playing it both ways. And then we have, I'm not wrong. In both senses, I'm not wrong. Anyways, Catwoman is another one. In Batman Returns, you find out, like, you never expect that she'd actually help. I would even say Lex Luthor in a lot of the DC animated movies. Yes, he has his own agenda, similar to Magneto, but there is stories where he ends up teaming up with the Justice League or with Superman. So yeah, those are like or Vegeta from Dragon Ball. But that is kind of a build up into a good guy.
It is. But when Vegeta came up in a lot of lists that I was searching for, and I'm like, okay, I know Camille's going to say Vegeta. So
yeah. I always try to bring him in whenever I can.
Spot for him.
I do. He's awesome. Any others, Nick?
So this was a deep dive for me, was Scar from Full Metal Alchemist. If you've ever watched it, he is a character that you don't really know much about for most of the story. Only tidbits once in a while, but near the end, he helps the main characters, Edward and Al, but he helps them, and then you kind of find out more from him, but he is notoriously bad kind of throughout the entire show, and then you kind of find out that maybe he's doing it for good reason. So that is an out of left field thing that I tried to think of. I think that works, right?
Yeah, that's a really good one. And really good anime if you have not watched it.
One of my favorite.
But as you can tell from a lot of our examples, it's kind of complicated, but we'll explain along the way with the characters that we identify in the game that we think kind of follows this trope. After the break, we pick up the pieces in Sector 5 on AutoSave.
I'm sorry. I truly am. We had no other place to go, and...
I would never leave a wounded man out on the street.
Elmira, I know what you said, but you have to let us go after Aerith.
Not this again.
We found an underground Shinra lab, where they've done human testing. This wasn't the first time, and it won't be the last. I know these people, and I know they're never gonna let Aerith go. She's the last living ancient on the planet. Think about what that means to Shinra's scientists. Especially to that son of a bitch, Hojo. We're all just numbers and meat to him.
Enough!
But...
Please, I need some time to think.
We kick off chapter 14 in search of hope of the gang back together at Aerith's house. And with her mom there, very against the idea of them helping Aerith out, just because she's afraid that Aerith may find herself in more danger if they resist as well.
Typical mom,
just not listening to the kids. But what I found really interesting, it's like, you know, we found Wedge. Wedge is badly wounded and asleep upstairs. I don't know about you, but I kind of felt that whole thing with like Wedge just sleeping. Let's continue this journey. I didn't find the emotion like we talked about last time, how it was so emotional losing Jesse, losing Biggs. And I just felt like there should be more joy that they found Wedge. Like, I just feel like that wasn't like, there was no real, like, yes, this is the one friend we found.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't get me wrong, I understand like Biggs and Jesse is dead and like that's all that's on their mind right now, but there wasn't a sigh of relief, I feel, for Wedge, or like, you know, just a moment where you're standing over the bed like talking to Wedge. You know,
yeah. Okay, so I get what you're saying, and there's no like, not vigil, but there's no like, you know, oh, is he gonna pull through? I guess we're just already assuming that he's fine, like right off the bat. I guess that would, and there's no really like, okay, he's sleeping upstairs, but like, what else? Like, does he have like a bullet wound?
Yeah,
what kind of like, we have no idea. The only thing I know is that he got shot in the ass once. That's pretty much it.
But he recovered from that injury.
He did.
But yeah, that was just weird for me. I felt like it was just like, all right, we got to write him out of the story because he's no longer a part of the party.
I think that's what it was. Yeah, I think they're like, okay, we know he's okay. Let's just leave him. So sorry, you don't get any closure on Wedge, Camille. My bad.
Yes, I'm sorry. But back to Elmira and her kind of concerns over Cloud and the gang helping Aerith out. Even after Cloud indicates that like they found labs, people are being experimented on, or things are being experimented on.
Yeah.
Do you think Elmira's kind of wrong in this situation? What would you do if you were in her shoes?
I don't understand. Like, you have a soldier who is like saying, we got to help Aerith right away. If she's your daughter, you would be like, yeah, like go after her right now. Like, don't be like, I need a moment to think. You guys should get some rest. Like, yeah, I get they should get some rest, but like, I don't know. You should be right on board with rescuing Aerith right away. I also wanted to say, Cloud mentions Hojo. Have we talked about Hojo at all in this game? I feel like he has not been mentioned whatsoever. Are we just to assume who he is because we played the old game?
No. I feel like Hojo has been mentioned, hasn't he?
Has he? See, you're not sure. I think we've seen him in cutscenes with Shinra where he's wearing the glasses, he's looking creepy, and we know who he is, but I don't think they've actually directly mentioned him in the entire game.
That he's actually Hojo.
Yes. So it's weird for me that Cloud just mentions Hojo like we're all supposed to understand who he is.
Interesting. I guess like because, you know, we've played the game before. Well, played the original game. Maybe it is playing with our prior knowledge of like placing characters, and we should know who that person is. Also, this being like an in-between, maybe we are like, did he even have to say Hojo if they've never actually introduced Hojo as a character at this point?
Right. They could just be like, They could be like
Some
Aerith.
dude.
They might. No, but they could just say like Shinra is
An evil corporation.
might be performing experiments on Aerith.
They've
like
done
they
it
did with
before.
me, or
Yeah.
if they've done it before,
Yeah.
something like that. That would make more sense. I don't know. Maybe that's just a little nitpicky thing for me. I also love Barrett's sultry tones in that media where normally he's just very aggressive, but this time he's like just soothing, and his voice is very calming.
He sounds like he could definitely be maybe sing a little Martin Gaye, like, he's like, oh, I'm sorry I didn't intrude on you. But
I was gonna say Louis Armstrong. What
Okay.
a wonderful world.
Is
Is that a good impression?
Maybe that was a pretty good impression.
Thanks.
But in this moment, besides Barrett's soothing voice, we also see how Cloud really cares about Aerith. And this is the one thing the game is doing that I hate so much, but I love all the same. It's very confusing for my emotions. I'm loving this romance, how much they care about each other being shown through this game, but I hate it all the same because I'm always Team Tifa.
I know.
And this game is just doing such a good job having me buy into their romance.
Yeah, I gotta say too, I agree. Like, it's making me conflicted in my normal choice. Like, I'm always Team Tifa, but it really makes me question my thoughts when I see this budding romance.
Exactly. All right, now we've talked about this before, but this is kind of where your choices matter. Now, if you decided to get close with Tifa during the game, or if you decide to get close with Aerith, you will trigger a cutscene with one or the other.
That flower you gave me the other night, that was from Aerith, wasn't it? I knew there was something weird going on. You buying flowers? They symbolize reunion, believe it or not. I was curious, so I looked it up. I tried to keep it alive as long as I could. But now, it's dead and buried. Like the bar, our home, and everything else. They took everything from us, again.
Uh-huh. Remember, Tifa realizes the flower that Cloud gave her before was from Aerith. I knew it.
I laughed because I replayed this scene again, and I had replayed it after we talked about it. And then I'm like, see, Camille was right, because I didn't realize it before, but she remembers the flower. And then you mentioned that right away. Be like, wow, You're going to give Tifa a flower that Aerith gave you? Oh, man.
Don't do
That's
it.
bottom of the
Don't
bin.
do it. That's like worse than being friend zoned. That's just like a deep cut and salt in the wounds. But it's interesting because now you're seeing how much Tifa cares about Cloud. Like, she doesn't even care about that. Rather than that, it's what scares her the most is how everyone and everything she knows is going to die. So we've seen her before, like, really trying to get close with Cloud, and it was like knowing who Cloud is. But I like this aspect of, Tifa's story, that she's concerned more about her friends, her family, and Cloud, yes, being a part of that, but it's not just solely based on Cloud, even though she throws herself into Cloud's arms very, very much like, that romantic trope every girl's trying to do. But, as Cloud put it before, to Jessie, are you that desperate? I don't think in any, like, how Tifa's written right now and how her focus has changed, she doesn't seem desperate for his affection. It's more she's desperate for his friendship.
Is that how you read it?
Yes. More desperate for someone to just understand and take part of that weight of that fear that you're going to lose your friends and everyone in this sector. That's how I read it.
So I was so confused by this scene because this is the first one that I saw because I picked Tifa, but I was confused at like the embrace because she's like crying on his shoulder, hugging him tightly, and then it takes him like 10 years to decide to put his arms up and hug her back, and then he's too tight and she says that he's hurting her.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
But I don't like when I watch this, I'm trying so hard to like, because I want Cloud and Tifa to be together. I'm
Yeah.
trying so hard to believe that this is romantic, but I think maybe you're right that I think she maybe understands that this is friendship related. But I don't know, but maybe it opens the door. I feel like it's still keeping the door open because we decided as players to pick this. And I feel like Square Enix is saying like, okay, you want this to happen. It's going to happen slowly, but it might happen. You're deciding this fate because again, this game, it's all weird. We don't know what's happening. We don't know if the story is changing. So maybe they're saying like, okay, maybe this is open-ended and maybe there is room for Tifa and Cloud, or maybe that's just me hoping. I don't know.
I mean, I hope too. Like, that'd be really cool if they were to do that. But I feel like, and we'll talk about Aerith's scene as well, there's a difference in the two scenes. And they're writing it to the fact that there's different feelings towards these two characters. And that's still followed in these two different cutscenes. But yeah, it's interesting. I feel like if they were to show, that flashback of Tifa and Cloud as kids and the scene happened, that's kind of what I pictured in my head. Like, this is just two friends sharing an emotion that they kind of lost everything. Like, everything hit the fan. It didn't go as planned. Even though I want the romance to happen, I think it's just two friends here just letting their emotions go.
That's frustrating.
Yeah, and it's funny because, we see Cloud here tell Tifa that crying isn't stupid. And I think that's a real eye-opener to how Cloud has changed, in his character of not caring and just being a merc for hire. And now he's so much involved. We talked about this last episode. He's so much involved in these people's lives that they're a part of him and his emotions. So I just thought that was cool.
I love too, there's quite a few of these moments where someone says something, it's like, oh, this is stupid, or I'm sorry I did that. And he's always like, no, it's fine. Like, be yourself. Like, he does that constantly now. I kind of dig it. I'm like, you know what? I don't think he's confident in himself because I don't think he knows who he is fully, but I think he's confident in his friends. So
yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's funny because he would be dishing that like, oh, you should don't cry. Like, I could totally see Cloud saying that before when we first started the game. Like, why are you crying? Like, this is just the job kind of thing.
Exactly.
So we see that development. But now we got to take a look at the other choice, Aerith's choice.
Everyone dies eventually.
I suppose.
So we need to make the most of the time we have. To live our lives the way we want to live. Every minute, every moment matters.
I'll remember that.
Good. I'm glad I met you, Cloud. I really am. I'm grateful for all the words we've shared, for all the moments and the memories. You've made me more happy than you know. And I'll always cherish what you've given me. But whatever happens, you can't fall in love with me. Even if you think you have, it's not real.
What the heck? There is so much to unpack here. What is going on? Okay, so Cloud sees Aerith at the house, even though she's kidnapped, and he asks if it's a dream, and she says, everyone dies eventually. What?
Oh, let me chime in here.
Chime in.
Just
chime in.
I was like,
I'm freaking out here.
If people know me, I'm very existentialist in my thinking a lot of the times, and I'm just like, oh, okay, everyone dies eventually. Okay, Aerith, like, where are you going with this? But like, again, we both picked Tifa, right? So we didn't see this cutscene. We had to watch it later, correct?
So yeah, did you? Okay, so for me, like, I played the game, not like how I wanted to play the game. I didn't look up guides, so I didn't even know there were other choices until I finished.
Neither did I. Agreed. Yep.
Playing. And what the heck? was this. Like, this makes me mad that I bought into the Tifa Cloud romance,
Right?
because this scene is giving us so many layers. Let's continue. Okay. So she says everyone dies eventually, and also, you can't fall in love with me?
What?
So, like, does this have to do with the fact that she knows she's gonna die, and she knows what she will mean to Cloud in the original game, and like what that loss means to Cloud?
Yeah.
Or is she? I'm putting my tinfoil hat on because I have a theory. You know me with these theories, and Nick, I want to hear your opinion on all this, but I just got to get this out because I'm just all the goosebumps. Is she saying that, she goes on to say it's not real, right?
Mm-hmm.
Them falling in love, it's not real, whatever. Is this because they are clones? Now, I brought up this theory before, right? When Cloud saw himself in, the lab within one of those test tubes, if you will. And the reason why I keep going back to this, the firstly, reunion is always going to be stuck in my head. So I feel like there's a reunion. There's multiple Sephiroths that we see, that seem like they're going on a reunion. Just before this, Tifa mentions that flower means reunion.
Yes.
Okay. We see Cloud talking to himself prior in the game. And also Sephiroth talking to Cloud, like an internalized monologue, if you will. I really do feel like Cloud may be a clone. And maybe that's why it's not real, because the emotion Cloud is feeling, the emotion maybe... I don't know if Aerith's a clone. This is still a tinfoil hat theory, just out of left field for me. But maybe that's why Aerith is saying it's not real. Like, when you're a clone, you kind of get the emotions of maybe other people that may be involved in the cloning process. Or maybe because he's not the OG Cloud, it's not real.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on, but I am hella confused. Nick.
Wow. Okay. Well, right now I feel like we're one of those YouTube explained videos where like this scene explained, and we have like 18,000 theories, and then none of them end up being right. Like the whole WandaVision.
We zoom into frames.
Yeah. And in this scene, in this frame, you can see that Sephiroth is actually on the moon, and that signifies. No, you know what? It's a great theory, and I know there's a whole clone situation in the original where that's a looming theme in that game, and that can also transfer into this. We're not really sure. It's just this whole the whole multiverse thing that I have going, where I still think that this is another reiteration of Cloud and Aerith. So this might be from a previous time in terms of like, these are the same characters, but it might be from a different timeline. And that's why that connection is there. But again, I think the most realistic of it all is she saying, don't fall in love with me because something bad is going to happen to me. That's where I think it is, but I feel like in the way she talks about it, this is why it's the one quote that I have in here, which is when Cloud says, I'm coming for you, and she replies, if that's what you want. To me, it just makes me think like she's not there. Like maybe she's not even like...
Is she dead already?
Right?
Right? Everyone dies like, you know how a common thing in movies, video games, when a character dies, sometimes there's that vision, like in Black Panther, and Black Panther, he sees his father. Is this kind of what's happening here? And that's why she's trying to soothe him as she goes back to the Earth, like saying, everyone dies eventually. That would be really sucky if we go through this adventure and then
she's dead already.
She's dead already. I'd be like, wait, what? we did this for what? It'd be an interesting choice though, but yeah, it's definitely a more cryptic scene. I feel like if you have not like if you did not choose this one and you don't want to play that again, or you didn't save in the right spot, just look it up online. It's very interesting to see, especially like the facial reactions on Cloud, because it doesn't seem like he's necessarily fighting the fact that Aerith is saying, you can't fall in love with me. Like he already knows that he's already fallen in love with Aerith.
Yeah.
Which again, that's why I feel like these scenes, although the game's giving you a choice into what scene you get, the scenes, how they're written and how they play out in both instances don't really seem like you have a choice in the romance in who Cloud falls in love with. Like that is still Cloud's choice. Okay,
so it's not our choice, so we don't get it. So it's the game's leading us on, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is all confusing, but from my biggest takeaway of watching these two, and now that you're mentioning it, because again, I want Cloud and Tifa to be together, but I guess they're not going to be. I guess they're friends, like you said. I agree with what you're saying. I guess what we see with these two scenes is Tifa wants Cloud, but Cloud doesn't want Tifa. And then Cloud wants Aerith, but Aerith doesn't want Cloud. So now the triangle gets even more messier. Because again, like if Aerith says like, oh, you can't fall in love with me, then Cloud will be like, all right, forget you then. Tifa, come over here. I'll give you a new flower that I just picked out of the ground and we can be lovers because Aerith didn't want me.
Yeah. I kind of like it does leave it open to maybe the point that Tifa and Cloud may get together. And maybe that's what it is like through Aerith's warnings, maybe he kind of like gets the hint, oh, I'm not getting this love back. Tifa, my good old friend here. Let me love you. Let me love you. Okay. You loved me long time. Let's just get together. But also what we get from these scenes is that Tifa is afraid, whereas Aerith is super calming and accepting of what's happened. Like you don't see Aerith's like dream, ghost, like force vision, whatever it is that happens in this dream sequence, say like, holy crap, all those people died. Can you believe Shinra? Like there's no conversation to Cloud about like what happened. It's more like just coming to terms that this has, like, I don't even know. Is it she's coming to terms with this just has to be the way it is? Or is she just coming with terms that things are out of our control? I don't know.
I think maybe she's seen so many visions of what things can turn out to be, and it might be bleak, and so she's accepted her fate. That's all.
Yeah, it definitely supports the fact that Aerith, as an ancient, knows a lot, maybe from your multiverse, seeing lots of visions, or maybe she's a time traveler, or maybe she's seen all the clouds in the lab. I don't know, but there's a lot more going with
or just seeing all the like she always tells people like, oh, when those people are dead and they come back to the earth, like she probably senses so many people dying constantly, especially the Sector 7 stuff, like,
oh yeah,
true, people died. So I don't know, maybe she's just like she's seen so much death that she's accepting of it all, whatever it is. Maybe
now in both interactions, now knowing what happens, Nick, who do you think Cloud should be with? I think you kind of answered it. More seeing Tifa as a friend. Yeah.
And I you know what? I think Cloud now at this point, I'm going to go off the board here and say that he shouldn't be with anybody. It's too complicated. Just be
find
friends
someone
with everybody
outside of the triangle, maybe. Yeah. Now, the group decides if it's time to, rescue Aerith finally. And we kind of see that the train stopped running in Sector 5. So at this point, the gang is trying to find a way to get over the wall. And that's when Tifa suggests that they ask Don Corneo to help, who's Boo Corneo, who is somewhere in Wall Market. And, when you're asking someone as sleazy as Don Corneo for help, what could go wrong?
Everything, because he's a sleazeball.
He is so sleazy. Oh, now in this chapter, it is everything side quest. It is very side quest heavy. If that's not your thing, then you may want to try to breeze through it, but you're going to find yourself losing out on some great items. there's also, you get some last chances to finish side missions before you get into the bulk of the rest of the story. So if you started some and then you continue with the main mission, you could go back and continue that.
Now, Camille, what about you? Because I remember chapters 8 and 9 that we did. You didn't finish all the side quests, so you didn't get the beautiful dresses. Did you finish all these side quests this time?
Yes, I did. Just because so the thing is, these side quests were they were fun. They were long. Some of them were really long, much longer than they needed to be. Like, I don't want to find missing children, okay? I'm tired of I feel like someone could just clip that and make me a horrible person for saying that. Missing children, please find them. But in this game, I don't want to spend the time finding. This is like the second or third time we're finding missing children for this place in this game, the Leaf House, and I'm over all of it.
They got to get their shit together and start taking wow, I can't even remember from school days. Attendance. Jesus.
Oh yeah, taking attendance. It's been so long since Nick has been in his school.
Old.
So old. Reunion. So for this, like, the side missions that were fun for me was the gym. Oh my God.
You loved it?
I enjoyed I don't like working out in person, but give me a gym in a video game. I am there every single day. And I love this because this is now our second time visiting the gym at Walmart. And we see Jules and the crew working out their biceps. And we get the chance for Tifa to actually challenge them, which is pretty easy. For the most part. The only one, Jules. Jules is a beast. Jules knows the pull-ups. Like, I tried the last attempt to get the championship belt because I already had one previously that I equipped onto Tifa. But I wanted another one for Barrett. So in order to get the championship belt, you have to beat Jules, which is like the final test for pull-ups with Tifa. Like, Jules is a monster. Just keeps going every time. Multiple reps. Like, I don't...
Did you not get it the first time?
Did you?
Yeah, I got it the first time.
What? You got the championship belt first time?
Yes, but once you...
Wow.
Once you get the rhythm of the move set... Even when the screen disappears and you don't see when the buttons are hitting, if you get the rhythm right, then you can get it pretty easily. That's all.
It's not only getting the rhythm, you also have to speed up because Jules is fast. So, when you first start, it's slow, you get that rhythm, and then you have to like pick up. I don't
but then
have
you pick
that
up the rhythm, baby. You pick it up.
I don't. Nick is dancing now. I'm okay. I'm done with all the rhythm now. Thanks, Nick. Thanks.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you didn't get it the first time. I apologize.
Some people don't have rhythm, Nick, okay?
I don't have rhythm either, but, when I was getting into it, I was grooving. I was like, da, da, ba, ba, quicker, boom, ba, boom, ba. And I was feeling it, and I beat Jules on the first try.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks for bragging. Nick, what other...
I have to brag because I'm normally really bad, and I admit when I'm bad, and this was a time where I got it right, okay? That's all.
Well, my invisible hat is off to you. Congratulations for that. What other side missions did you like or didn't like?
My favorites were Malicious Goons and Subterranean Menace because of the enemies that you have to face. And when I see a Tonberry in this game, it gives me the nostalgic feels. I remember myself as a young kid playing Final Fantasy and seeing these beautiful enemies. Tonberries are one of my most favorite, even though they're deadly.
Yeah.
With especially one-hit kills. You got to be careful with that. And then obviously Behemoth. I've been waiting for a Behemoth in this game. I always love when Behemoths come in Final Fantasy games. They're one of my favorite enemies to face. And I was hoping, because I thought some of the enemies were Behemoth-like. And I'm like, oh, is that Behemoth? It wasn't Behemoth.
No.
And then finally we do face the Type 0 Behemoth. And it lived up to it. The character design looked awesome. And even with the Tonberry as well, it feels very Final Fantasy-esque because this game feels very futuristic, I guess. So these kind of enemies seem almost in a distant past. So it's nice to see them. That's all.
Okay. Yeah, no, they were good boss battles.
Yeah, they were. I died so many times with the Tomberry, like ridiculous.
Yeah.
amount.
Really?
It took me 3 or 4 times to beat the Tomberry because my guys just kept dying. And then, let me hear how good you were in this one.
It just took me 1 try. No biggie.
Oh,
whatever.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
you know what? My real hat, because I'm wearing a hat.
Yes.
Off to you.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you for that. No, there were a lot of good side quests here. You could also, there was the power of music where you go and talk to people to collect more musical tracks. The tracks weren't that great. I'm not gonna lie. The tracks that you get in this mission weren't that great at all. This was a fun one, Tom Bandit, and I thought it was fun just because we get more Johnny. I love seeing Johnny. I really do. I didn't like him at the beginning, but now he grew on me. And pretty much what happens in this side mission, he gets his wallet stolen because he's kind of like mugged by a really pretty chick, I think he calls her. Pretty chick or something like that. Chick, yeah. And we actually find out like this a tomboy bandit, she's actually the granddaughter of the angel who, steals from the rich and gives to the poor in the slums. Yeah. So that was kind of a great closure to that story of the angel that we saw previously when we were in, before we got to this part, before the big collapse. And yeah, I feel like if you haven't, spent some time as well talking to Chadley, because you probably unlocked a lot of goods through the battles from the last time we saw Chadley. I mean, I feel like Chadley really needs to get his act together. I don't get, there's just a lot of materia that Chadley's
I just hate his name. Like, why is her name Chadley? who names their kid Chadley? Sorry.
Yeah. Dang it, Chadley. No, but I feel like there's so much materia that Chadley creates that after a while it does become like, I don't even need this materia, Chadley. Like, why did I even do this mission for you? Just throw it back in his face. They're not worth it. But after all of that, you could finally progress into the main part of the story as we head to Corneo's mansion.
Let's just hear him out.
So, what's the deal with the hole?
Unfinished business. If you 3 give me a hand with it, I'll give you what you need to get topside.
You want us to go back into the sewers with you? What's down there?
Corneo's hidey hole. That's where I'm headed.
You're not gonna try to screw us over, are you?
If that's what you think, walk away. I'll find somebody else to work with. And you'll have to find another way to get topside.
All right, we're in.
Say what?
He betrays us, he dies.
Fine by me.
He means it.
I'll tell you more after we've climbed down. When you're good to go, let me know.
This is another character who kind of grew on me, Leslie. So it looks like Corneo's henchman. Leslie, yeah, I do like Leslie. I'm a fan of him. Not a fan of how he dresses, but definitely a fan of him. He's beautiful, by the way. Yeah. And Cloud kind of feels at this point that you can't trust him, or you have no choice but to trust him because Leslie wants to help us out. And my thing is, why can't you trust Leslie? He literally helped you escape Corneo's mansion before. I don't understand why this is an issue. Is it an issue because Barrett is all like, I'm really sus of Leslie, so everyone else now has to be sus of Leslie? Like, this part to me made no sense because it seemed like they were meeting Leslie again for the first time in a one-on-one, kind of situation. It was weird.
I think it's the context of he works for Corneo, so it doesn't really matter. Again, he helped us, but it was still, we don't really know too much about him in terms of what his motivations are. So to me, he's still untrustworthy at this point. I know he's hot, like you said, but that, you know what, maybe hot people sometimes, maybe you trust him more because he's hot, but his hat is horrendous. So I can't trust
his
him
fashion's
if he wears
horrible.
hats like that. But no, I would 100% be in Barrett's on Barrett's side here, thinking I can't really trust him. But like you said, Cloud has no choice. They have no choice. They're pretty much desperate. They have no leads in anything on how to get anywhere, and their only lead is Corneo, who is like the scummiest of scumbags of all time. So it's like, at this point, throw all your hands in that one basket and see what happens. And like Cloud says, we'll kill him if nothing happens. And I believe that Cloud will actually kill him if that doesn't happen.
So yeah, Tifa's like, he's serious about that. He will kill you. But my thing is, like, I think this is just a writing thing I have with this game, where sometimes it doesn't acknowledge things past to characters that were not present for those moments. So, for example, escaping Corneo's mansion, Barrett wasn't there. So I understand why Barrett's very much like, I can't trust him. But at no point does Tifa or Cloud say, well, Leslie helped us escape, but I would still watch him. You know, like there's no connection. Okay. Yeah, it's sometimes like broken telephone with these characters and how they interact with each other in different scenes that throws me off.
Okay.
And Bear may be just a little bit too tough on
but that's all the time. He's always threatening people, and I'm just like, okay, Bear, like we get it. And he's like, I'm gonna put your skin in between your body and pull it out. Yes, like it's just like, okay, man, like we get it. Like simmer down a little bit. Leslie is trying to help you. Like please, like just calm down. That's all. Like use your Elmira voice. That's what we need. Okay.
It's like shh. Just chill out, man. Now we're back into the sewers and yay!
Fourth time in a row.
I was, you know what? Although I hated the sewers because it's like nothing's interesting is happening in that environment, I was really happy to head back into the sewers just because I had the key to Corneo's like hideout, right? Like to his stash. His stash. So I wanted to finish that mission, which is a side mission for this chapter. So that was the only thing because I didn't realize that there was a stash in the sewers. So I was looking everywhere.
So was I.
Yeah.
I was looking on the map for like 20 minutes and I'm like, where is this? It's telling me it's right here, but it's not here. And then I realized it's in the friggin' sewers.
Yeah. So that's why I was happy to go back to the sewers. And, you know, after we go on a wild and very annoying goose chase with a equally annoying monster who has the key to get into Corneo's secret hideout, you finally manage to get him and defeat him. However,
that's not a key.
Sorry.
That's not your pendant either. Were they family?
No.
It was all just a dream, wasn't it? But one day, no. Time to wake up and forget.
"6 months ago. On that day, Corneo picked her as a bride, and on the next, she vanished without a trace. But before she did, she gave it back. Salt on the wound. Thing cost me a small fortune.
Why did you want to come down here?
Revenge. I know I need to let go, but I can't. I need closure, because without it, I'll never be able to move on.
It's fine. As long as you get us topside, we're still in.
Thanks. And don't worry. I got you.
You all right?
So it turns out that Leslie had us following this little monster around for not a key, but a pendant that was obviously very sentimental to him. And I told you, Leslie's just a sweet, hot, trustworthy guy.
Did Hot really have to be involved
Yes,
in that sentence?
yes, it did.
All right. Okay.
Yes, it did. No, but
right.
I kind of got the vibe from when Leslie helped us earlier in the game that he was probably screwed over by Corneo. So it was great to kind of get that look at how he was screwed over by Corneo. And literally it was because Corneo took his wife away from, or fiance away from him.
Can we unpack this here? Because again, it's just such a it's kind of layered into the game like it's nothing. But you're telling me that Leslie's fiance was taken by Corneo to be his bride and is now presumably dead / probably horrible things have happened to her. Like this whole Corneo business, I don't know. It creeps me out because it's really bad. I don't know how else to explain it, but this is it's kind of brushed over in this story. But I feel maybe Square Enix should have changed this kind of storyline to make it a little bit more PG because this is kind of disturbing, right?
It's really, really dark. It's really dark. It kind of reminds me, I don't know if any Walking Dead fans out there, but there's this whole story arc where a character try to get in, they become a head honcho for Michael Dean, what's that guy's name with the nail?
Jeffrey Dean
Morgan. Yes, thank you. His character, which I cannot remember because I haven't watched the show in so long, but pretty much that character tries to get in with him. He becomes a head honcho, and then his wife is taken as a wife for that character. So it's literally what Corneo did here. What happened in The Walking Dead? It's very disturbing. Very sick and twisted.
Walking Dead, I'm sure, makes it disturbing, right? In this one, Corneo's just ooh, hee, I'm a creep. But it's more okay, you've probably murdered and killed a bunch of women. So maybe we should talk about
Negan.
Negan. You got it. Okay.
It just popped in my head.
Negan.
Yeah. So but even with Walking Dead, they talk about the horrible things Negan does, but they don't go into detail about him stealing other people's wives and raping them, essentially, that's what he's doing. So it's really twisted, this storyline, but there is at the end of this, I feel maybe there will be some resolve for Leslie, or so we hope.
I hope Leslie some of these women are dead.
Hopefully.
that's
hopefully. I don't know. But Leslie finally leads us to Corneo's hideout.
I don't think I need to remind you why I'm down here. Spilling the beans to those 3 escape artists was a serious mistake. Now I'm on Shinra's shit list. The plate stunt was meant to be an unprecedented tragedy, claiming countless innocent lives. But those naughty little kittens organized an evacuation and screwed up the plan. I'll let you in on a secret. Shinra is going to abandon Midgar and build something close to paradise. I was invited to be a part of it. Dawn of a new and improved wall market. I'll be lucky to live another week.
We see the sleazeball himself, Corneo.
Yeah.
He's so disturbing. And he also tells us something really interesting, that Shinra plans on abandoning Midgar to build something close to paradise. Now, Nick, I know we talked about this before. We always thought playing the original game that Midgar was just kind of like Earth.
Yeah.
What the heck?
Well, it seems like, again, Shinra this whole time have been sucking the Mako out of everything, and they don't give a shit about this whole place. And now what they're trying to do is ruin it and build something different. It really sounds to me like the people on Earth that are trying to move to Mars in the next generation or so. Let's just uplift us into another place because we ruined this one, and screw Shinra for all these plans. But again, it's kind of predictable. We knew that probably was going to happen.
True. We also get a chance to finish the Abzu fight from earlier in the game. Remember earlier we finished Abzu and then he kind of ran away. Well, he is back in full strength. And I don't know, this fight isn't bad, but the little rat-like people or monsters, Yeah, I don't know what they're called. Scouts, something scouts. I feel like they're just really annoying. But good fire materia will kind of help you through this battle. And once you kind of get enough fire attacks, you stagger melee, and then you're good. And then you continue doing it. How'd you find this fight?
Just always kill the ads first. That's always the most important thing. They're like little tiny abzus, basically. That's what they look like anyway. But yeah, kill those ads. Other than that, it's a breeze fight because you can melee him to death. So it's pretty straightforward. But again, kill the ads first when you get to Abzu.
Now we end up fulfilling our end of the deal because we took good care of Corneo and Abzu, and Leslie, he holds up his part of the deal.
So, when this is over, you gonna go on being a merc?
That's the plan.
Reckon it suits you.
Yeah, it does.
Used to think you were a little shit with a big attitude and a bigger inferiority complex. Quite possibly the worst person I have ever met. But that was before I figured you out. All this, it ain't you.
Deep down, you're a pretty nice guy. Didn't see it when we were kids, but...
Don't know about any of that. But kindness is no use on the battlefield. If anything, it's a liability.
Hey, no one's asking you to treat Shinra with kid gloves.
Aerith's up there waiting for us.
Then we better get a move on, huh?
Ready?
That's the end of chapter 14 as we use our grappling guns to get topside for the next mission. But again, Leslie asks you if you're ready to go, so make sure that you've done everything you want. Maybe turn in that Corneo secret stash mission as well. And then, you're ready to leave. There's no turning back, although I'm going to briefly turn back because once we see Leslie, we kind of bid goodbye to him. I got the sense that Tifa's putting hope that his wife may be alive.
I'm not going to put any hope into that. But I'm you know what? I see what you're saying though, and I think that's what Square Enix is trying to like tail us towards, is that maybe that's the story with Leslie is not over. So I can see that happening.
Yeah, I hope we see Leslie again as Final Fantasy VII Remake.
I bet you do, because
continues.
you think he's hot. Yeah,
he is so hot, and I'm kind of team Leslie and Tifa if Leslie's fiance is actually dead. Yeah,
no, don't leave my team of Cloud Tifa.
Sorry,
Damn it.
I'm sorry. Okay, well, on to chapter 15, The Day Midgar Stood Still, but kind of confused by this title, I have to admit, because it's literally like, is it the day that Midgar stood still? Because it's like,
no.
30 minutes until you reach a boss fight. And it's happened, like, I feel like the previous chapter should be like the day that Midgar stood still, because it just happens right after the initial collapse. And like this one happens a chapter after that, and then you're climbing and you kind of reach a boss fight, and
absolutely nothing happens in this entire chapter. It's literally just climbing and then boss fight. So I don't understand where that chapter title came from. Did they have it maybe stashed in the bank and then they decided, let's just slap it on this one?
We'll just slap
it on. Because I would have called this
here.
one just climbing. That's it.
No Way But Up. That would have been.
Oh,
that would have been a good.
Brilliant. Bravo.
I know, right?
Brilliant. Bravo. Yeah.
Square, if you need me to name any of your chapters for the next part of the remake, hit a girl up. Okay. At the top of this climb, you actually reach the boss fight, which is the Valkyrie. Hold on, wait. Okay. I'm going to actually stop here because remember at the beginning of this episode when I talked about Cloud's sword being way too big, should be a shield, but is not? This is the reason why. There are multiple times before you get to the Valkyrie. Well, actually, when you get to the Valkyrie starts shooting you as you continue to climb. And there are so many shots landed on Cloud where I'm just like, what is his sword? What is the Buster Swords doing if it's not covering my back?
Now that you're mentioning it, I remember actually like shouting out loud while I was playing to myself, basically. It's like, can you stop fucking shooting me, please? Yeah. I was so pissed because you're just running and they're just shooting constantly. And I feel like I'm getting cover, but they're still shooting.
Yeah, it makes no sense at all. But, maybe the Buster Sword makes no sense as to why that's so big.
That's true.
Now, the Valkyrie fight, its weakness is lightning and wind. And, you kind of have to dodge the napalm drop attacks that it has, which could be very annoying as well. And it flies a lot. So I think Barrett's probably your best choice when you're waiting for your ATB gauge to go back up so then you could drop a spell. Did you find that helpful for you as well, or?
You could barely use, especially in the first phase, you can barely use Cloud and Tifa. Every time I tried to go in for a skill, it wouldn't work. So I just went back to Barrett and I would use spells with the other two guys. And then I would just use the ranged attacks with Barrett.
Yeah, exactly. And then when you hit phase 2, physical attacks are much easier. So going in with Cloud is a good choice. I would say Tifa, just because if you just power her up and then you hit Valkyrie with an uppercut, I think it takes a lot more damage than Cloud does, depending on how you leveled up Cloud. Yeah. Phase 3, it gets a bit more difficult because it fires like blue tracer beams, and whoever's kind of caught in it basically dies. So yeah, just avoid that.
Yeah, cause me trouble.
Just avoid it. Yeah, it does cause trouble. But otherwise, that's really it for chapter 15. Just the boss fight, really. And some little guys are thrown in there as well. Obviously, those helitroopers were back in that chapter to just annoy the hell out of us and question how that's even a feasible way to fight. This is also the shortest chapter in the game. And it runs fairly short and straightforward. Now, when we return, we'll discuss our knight in shining armor on AutoSave.
There's such a thing as too much excitement.
Yeah. And there's still more to come.
Guess so.
Hope everybody's warmed up.
So it's finally time to get into the meat of the finale as Cloud, Barrett, and Tifa are about to try to rescue Aerith from Shinra. Yeah, finally, after convincing Elmira so many times.
Yeah.
Now, I need to ask Nick, how satisfied are you with how we kind of got to this point?
I mean, it's kind of tough because there was a lot of side quests near the end. But this game, relatively, I would say that there are some, places where maybe they could trim the fat a little bit. But otherwise, I was pretty satisfied finally getting to this point in the game, because you kind of realize, like, once Leslie says there's no turning back from here, you're like, okay, strap in for the finale. So I felt they did a good job. Obviously they wanted to extend it a little bit longer than normal, because it's just one part of the story. But I still think they did a good job to get us to this point where I'm wanting more, but I feel satisfied as what we've done already. What about you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think they also did a really great job in kind of building us up to this finale. Like, I am super interested in what happens next. But at no point did I feel like it got boring or they were trying to buy time into what happens next. It felt like it was very well progressed and timed out. Now, a couple of notes on the gameplay you get in these chapters. So you get the pedometer materia in chapter 14, which turns into AP up materia after 500 or 5,000. 500 steps would have been much easier.
Yeah.
And then that kind of helps you level up faster, the materia faster. So it's really good. If you can use it, I actually put that on. I did.
Do you use? Oh, you did. Okay. Because I gotta say, like, from the materia that I put on in the beginning of the game, I don't think I ever changed the materia much afterwards. Like, I try to be like, does this work? Does the warding materia, should I use this? And I was just always like, meh, whatever. Just use cures and fires. That's it.
I have like my main ones, like usually, the fire, the ice, thunder, arrow, like those are just still with the same characters. I never really changed that. But then the other ones I do swap up, especially because of Chad Lee and his missions. I got used to swapping them out. and testing them out as well. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Now, in these chapters as well, because we're going back to Wall Market, you're actually able, which like was so satisfying for me, to explore the back alleys that were blocked off before. I'm not a completionist, but when I could see an object that I cannot get, it irritates me so much, especially in a game like Final Fantasy VII Remake, where I don't know if I'll be able to go back.
Exactly. That was the same thing for me. Was like, I saw there was a few chests that are blocked off by dudes talking, and I'm just like, get out of my way.
Sketchy dudes. Sketchy.
After every mission, I would go back to see if I would be able to get it, and each time, nope, can't get it. So then finally, I was like, okay, now I can finally get these bad boys.
Yeah,
it was very satisfying.
I did the same thing. When Cloud was dressed, to meet Corneo, I was like, oh, maybe because everyone's giving Cloud lots of compliments on the streets, maybe the back alleys will be open. They weren't, and you couldn't really go into them because you had to keep going to Corneo's mansion. So This was really fulfilling, getting that opportunity to now get those little items that were back there. You could also buy a mithril saber at the Wall Market. I did not.
No, neither did I. I forgot about it.
Okay.
To be honest.
Same here. That's the whole thing, because I think we talked about this before. We use the weapons that are pretty much a staple for each character. I do still level up the other ones just because I hate seeing like a number pop up as to I have this much SP to spend on a weapon, so I have to use it. So that notification kind of goes away. But yeah, I did not get the mithril saber, so my bad.
Neither did I. Yeah, my bad.
Now back to our theme of the show. Okay. If you didn't guess, the unlikely savior was Leslie Kyle, the handsome one, and someone who we thought was a bad guy initially ended up having his own trauma and wanted closure on that, so then he could kind of move forward. And obviously that's from losing his fiance to Don Corneo. Did you see this coming at all, Nick?
I didn't, because honestly, I forgot until you mentioned in this episode that Leslie helped us out before.
You forgot about that face?
I did. I forgot about it. So again, they do put in something there where you can maybe see that he might help you out again, but I kind of put his character out of my mind completely. We saw him once in Wall Market. We don't see him again. I didn't think that he was going to come back in this scenario. When we saw him again at the start of chapter 14, I didn't expect him to be there. Again, I thought he was just a throwaway character, kind of. And then we see that he helps us in the long run, so I was surprised. But I'm guessing that you weren't.
No, I kind of got the feeling we would see him again, and I was right.
Good for you.
Yeah, I was right. No, I got the feeling that there was more to him, especially just how he was the one to help us out, not his buddy, who also is maybe as sleazy as Don Corneo,
100%.
But he just seemed more level-headed, that I could see him as a reoccurring character throughout the story. So I was anticipating his return, and just to have him be the one that kind of helps us out, I felt like that was a nice bow just to complete what his trauma was and why. Because even when we first met him, he was warning Aerith and Cloud, trust me, you don't want to mess with Corneo. This won't go good for you. He never gave me the vibe that he's a truly bad guy. So I just love the fact that he isn't, and that there's hope for him and Tifa.
I didn't like the whole, it felt very Ex Machina in terms of oh, here's Leslie. And here he is, and he can help us out. Oops, there's some help. There's always situations in games or movies, wherever, where it seems like some characters are plopped in just to help move the story. Where in this situation, did we need Leslie? I guess because we didn't have any leads.
We had no leads. If Leslie wasn't there, we would have went to the mansion. No one would be there. We would have found this hole. And I guess we could have followed it to Corneo. But to me, it makes sense that Leslie, one of his henchmen that does the dirty work, would still be there after Shinra's guards stormed the place, right?
All right.
So I didn't feel like it was too out of nowhere. Now, anything else? I feel like that's kind of it for this episode as we get closer and closer to the end of the game. Was there anything else you wanted to add, Nick?
I'm going to ask you, did you feel like, I guess you did feel for Leslie and his fiance situation, but like, I guess you want to see more of him moving forward, correct?
Yes, I really do. I like his character. I like that he's kind of okay, so Cloud, he kind of is, you think he's cold off the bat, but he's much more softer than Cloud. And they look a lot alike.
They do.
They do.
Maybe Leslie is Cloud's
Is a Cloud clone?
Yeah.
Maybe. If that means that he'll be back, I'm for that story arc. But that's pretty much it for this week's episode. Of course, you could follow us on Patreon, help support the show, and reach us on Twitter at AutoSavePod. But for next week, the rescue of Aerith begins.
Used to think you were a little shit with a big attitude and a bigger inferiority complex. Quite possibly the worst person I have ever met. But that was before I figured you out. All this, it ain't you.
Deep down, you're a pretty nice guy. Didn't see it when we were kids, but...
Don't know about any of that. But kindness is no use on the battlefield. If anything, it's a liability.
Hey, no one's asking you to treat Shinra with kid gloves.
Aerith's up there waiting for us.
It's time for some questions to be answered next time on AutoSave. AutoSave is produced and hosted by Nick Andrade and myself, Camille Salazar-Hadaway. The show is also produced by Dylan Wilson. Gameplay and additional elements provided by Chris Zeiser. Executive producer, Clayton Hansler. You can follow the show at AutoSave Podcast on Twitter and AutoSave Pod on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch. You can subscribe to the show wherever you're listening to it right now. And if it happens to be Apple Podcasts, kindly leave us a rating and a review, but only if it's good. AutoSave is a Soda original hosted on the Soda Podcast Network.